Come with me.
You'll witness things
Strange, unexpected, mysterious, but not to be denied. Join me now and take that extraordinary step outside the world of our five senses. Sigma, Cineas Communications Incorporated, Silverleaf Resorts, Simmons, Anthony, 2135. It's the beginning of another business day in the city, 9 o'clock. But for Mr. Simmons, time as we know it is about to stop. In a few moments he will be hurled back into the dark abyss of the past, where every moment is an eternity. Mr. Simmons is about to penetrate the psychic barrier. Now for this journey, no passport is required, no visa. In Mr. Simmons' case, he already has what he needs. A guilty conscience. Have you ever felt you knew what would happen next? And it did.
I'll look forward to our meeting on Thursday, at which time we can discuss our short-term objectives. With regards, Anthony Simmons.
I can't see. It's all black.
Anthony Simmons has just dictated a letter to be typed by his secretary while sitting at his desk and using his voice recorder. However, upon playback, something has gone awry. Startled by what he has just heard, he wants to check the recording again.
I can't see. It's all black.
He stops the tape. Frightened and perplexed by the situation, he can't understand what is happening. He paces about, then tries the machine a third time.
I can't see. It's all black.
Mr. Simmons stops the machine for the third time and thinks. He then abruptly looks at his calendar on his desk and suddenly remembers today's date does have a significant meaning. For 1 year ago today, something happened. He was certain all was forgotten. In an effort to try and erase the situation, he tears the page from his calendar and throws it in the trash.
Miss Wallace?
Yes, sir?
Come in here, please.
Yes, sir?
Miss Wallace, who's been fooling with my voice recorder?
Like no one that I know of. Is it broken?
Who can get in here? Who has a key?
Just myself and the cleaning lady. Perhaps I could...
No, don't touch it.
Well, maybe you need to...
No, never mind.
If you would like to dictate to me...
No, later. Later, Miss Wallace.
But, Mr. Davis...
Please, Miss Wallace, just leave me alone.
Once more, Mr. Simmons sits down and tries the voice recorder.
I can't see. It's all black. I want to go home. Take me home, please.
With a look of confusion and perplexity, Anthony thinks back to that dark day of his past, the day he had hoped would never return to his memory. 1 year ago today, we find him sitting comfortably in a nightclub with an attractive lady, presumed to be his wife.
To us, to tonight.
Well, now what little white lie did you tell Danny tonight?
Well, tonight you're a very important buyer from Portland, and you drink large amounts of some poisonous liquor. Your name's Mr. Bellingham.
Bellingham? Oh no. That's even worse than the one last week.
Suddenly, Florence, Anthony's mistress, has a change of attitude.
Tony, this is awful.
How awful?
To have to act like thieves, stealing every minute, every hour, hiding in dark corners, wondering how long it will be until what we feel for each other is no longer a secret.
He didn't like what he was hearing. Florence was expressing her guilt for the affair. She goes on to say that she wants to end it, that she can no longer carry on like this.
Just then, an old friend of his approaches the table.
Well, if it isn't good old Tony Simmons.
Anxiously, Tony shakes his hand.
Hello, Tom.
His friend goes on to explain that he wanted to get together to discuss buying some stock from her. When his friend asked,
And this must be Mrs. Simmons, I presume?
Anthony made the excuse that they were just leaving, actually being late for an appointment.
Later that night, we find them dancing at another club. Apparently, Anthony persuaded Florence to continue their evening. After the dance, they take a seat. She picks up her drink.
I think I need about 7 more of these.
Eventually, her guilt catches back up with her. She tells Anthony she is ending it now,
Tony, I love you so much, but I can't do this anymore.
and that he must help her by not calling her again. This wasn't what he wanted at all. He pleaded with her, but she was adamant. It was late when they left the bar, very late. She fell asleep on the way home. It was dark and the less traveled road was thin. For a moment, he looked over at her, started to put his arm around her. Just then, she started to wake. Suddenly, she bolted up and screamed.
Tony!
He looked back at the road. It was a single headlight right in front of him. He slammed on the brakes and swerved, but his efforts to avoid a collision had failed.
Oh no! Cried Florence as they quickly got out of the car and ran into a young man who was thrown from his bicycle when Anthony hit him head on. As they kneeled down beside him, the young man said,
I can't see. I can't see. It's all black. I want to go home. Take me home, please, please.
Then his head dropped back. His pulse was gone. The young man was dead. Oh my God, Tony, what have we done?
He didn't waste any time planning an alibi. He gave Florence specific instructions to follow on her end. He called his wife from the office, promised her the mink coat she had forgotten about, had her return call him at the office to prove he was there that night, and even covered up the damage done to his car. These are people ridden with guilt, laden and bewildered by the most implacable, the most terrible enemy of all, conscience. For Anthony Simmons and Florence Hughes, it was the longest year of their lives. Now when they meet, they only have one thing to talk about.
Tony, I can't stand it.
Florence, believe me, it's over.
Or so he thought. Mr. Simmons was quite sure that the year of silence about the young man's death meant that everything was safely behind them. Over, so he thought.
I can't see. I can't see. It's all black.
Mr. Davis, his boss, calls his office.
Tony, I need that letter. What's the problem, man?
Anthony makes an excuse, asks his secretary for a new tape for the machine, and this will fix it. With the new tape, he records.
Dear sir, dear sir.
However, upon playback,
I can't see. I can't see.
in a panic, Anthony calls Florence, tells her what is happening. She comes to his office and hears it for herself.
I can't see. I can't see.
She faints in his arms. Later that evening, Anthony is driving home. Suddenly, he sees a single headlight in front of him. He swerves off the road.
I don't get it, officer.
Says a man who was riding his bike.
I tell you, he was nowhere near me when, for no reason, he goes off the road. I don't know. Maybe it was one of those optical illusions.
An optical illusion. That's possible. It's possible. Only moments afterward, Mrs. Florence Hughes walked into the 19th Precinct station and told the police that she couldn't stand it any longer. She referred, in a near hysterical sense, to a voice heard on this voice recorder. The voice of a young man dead for 1 year. Now the police have already listened to this evidence, and this is what they heard.
Dear sir. Dear sir.
Dear sir, dear sir. That's all they heard, despite the tearful claims from Mrs. Hughes. You know, the conscience is a potent enemy. It has been known to create a voice of its own, the voice of doom, heard usually only by the guilty. However, psychic phenomena offers many reported instances of an apparitional manifestation, wherein the victim has appeared to the guilty long after the event. Now, isn't it possible, in the case of the guilty, in mind and in heart, that they could also receive an auditory manifestation? In this case, a voice from beyond the grave. Isn't it possible?
Page 23, take 1.
Except for you've got, are we forgetting the calendar and all together?
Did he not say?
Well, I thought you were going to crumple up the old one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's just go for real.
Okay.
How was it besides the calendar?
That was great. Very informative.